with your giving levels. Now, a lot of people are confused that our national treasure, NPR, has the same motive. Unfortunately, there's a big discussion going on now about how much the government is funding them, which is not very much, actually, because most of the money comes from, what does it come from, John?
Advertising.
Or whatever you want to call it. So there's a show on NPR called Planet Money. And I'm so happy they actually just admitted it.
A wrinkle here when you're considering federal funding for NPR. If NPR deserves federal funding because it's this weird public good that will be underprovided without government assistance, what about other radio stations?
Or other podcasts.
They are also public goods. They're just like NPR. They're non-rivalrous.
That's right. Are we rivalrous, John?
No.
They're non-excludable.
Are we excludable?
No.
So what about KISS 100? Or even television, broadcast television?
How about American Idol?
Should The Bachelor get federal money?
And no one seems to argue that we need public funding for those things. And why is that?
Now listen very, very closely, and you'll hear the difference between our product, which is bringing you actual, and as far as we know, factual information, versus you, the listener, being the product. Listen carefully.
Well, follow me, friends, through the looking glass. It turns out there is another way to view broadcast media and public radio where none of it looks like a public good at all.
All right, so listeners, are you ready to have your minds blown? Okay.
He sounds like Kyle from South Park, doesn't he? It's like, listeners, get ready to have your minds blown. I'm going to blow your mind. I'm going to blow your mind. Listen to this. You're not going to believe what you're going to hear.
Think about it this way. So normally you think, for a radio broadcast, the listener, you're the consumer, and the product is the radio programming that you're listening to, but which the radio producer has no way of charging you for.
But now, think about it differently. Think about you as the product and the advertisers as the customers. The people who run a radio station can sell your ears to the advertisers, and most commercial radio and television think about it that way. The product is the audience, and they are selling that audience.
What?
That's a fact. That is the way all commercial publishing companies and broadcasters think about the mechanism. The audience is the product, and the product is being sold to the advertisers.
But it's not.
And that's, by the way, before you go on with that clip, that's why PBS is so left-leaning. People are always moaning and groaning about it. But in any specialty operation, in fact, we actually do have a product. We don't sell it to anybody, though. That's the difference between what we do. But the fact of the matter is, like, let me just give an example. When we were at PC Magazine, and this was explained to me by Bill Ziff himself. This was one of the reasons that PC Magazine, when it was in its heyday, would never publish anything for beginners. Because you guys should have a beginners section in there so you can explain how computer technology works so people don't know. We didn't want beginners reading the magazine. We had an audience that was so well defined and so specific. They were high end. They were purchasers. They were the tech guys at a corporation. They were very easy to pinpoint. You could put them in a room. They'd all get along with each other. You didn't want a bunch of amateurs and crazy people that were off on the deep end on supercomputing or whatever. And you could take this group, and they were so concise and specific. You could take it to an advertiser like Dell or somebody like that and say, "Look, here are the people that buy your product. We put them all together. We got 1 million of them. Give us some money and you can talk to them." And that's the way all media works. And that's what happens. You end up essentially working for the advertiser, creating this little crowd of people for them, not for the benefit of them, but for them, for the advertiser, not for the benefit of the reader, I'm saying, or the listener in the case of what we do. You're creating it all for the purpose of all. And if you listen to any podcast that have advertising, you're going to always find that they're kind of trying to take you, the listener, and make you a product that they're selling. You're basically being used.
You are being whored like a long-legged Mac Daddy pimping your ass. But of course that doesn't.
In other words, yes.
But that doesn't happen with NPR, our national treasure, does it, John? No. No, because we're independent. We don't sell you as a product. Let's listen to them, what they say themselves about it.
And most commercial radio and television think about it that way. The product is the audience, and they are selling that audience to the advertisers.
If you're trying to fund a radio show, a TV show through advertising, you've effectively turned it from a public good into a private good. But the customers are not the people who are viewers. The customers are the people who are actually paying for it, who are the advertisers. And advertising is rivalrous. One advertising slot uses up time that then can't go to another advertiser, and it's excludable. If the advertiser doesn't pay, you don't run that advertiser's message. So for a long time, the solution to that particular public good problem was, well, sure, it's a public good from the point of view of the viewers, but from the point of view of the advertisers, it's a private good, and we can provide it in a private market, and no problem.
That's so confusing, because now you take public radio, you think about it one way, it feels very natural, it qualifies as a public good. You think about it another way, all of a sudden it's not a public good. All of a sudden the product is the audience, and you're selling that to advertisers.
Which we do. We call them underwriters. Yeah. They're not advertisers exactly, but they have a lot of the same characteristics.
I predict Planet Money will be off the air soon.
These guys are out.
Just hear that one more time.
The product is the audience, and you're selling that to advertisers.
Which we do. We call them underwriters.
We call them underwriters. Oops.
Well, the great scam of public radio, or NPR, not public radio in general, because there are some public radio. I mean, it's a different animal in different ways. But of NPR is that they can the real gimmick, which I think is genius, and why they get so much money, and then they can sucker let's look at this overall. These guys are smarter than the average bear. First of all, they can sell the audience to these underwriter, quote, advertisers, whatever you want to call them. They can sell them without having numbers. They don't have to say, well, we got our Nielsen's just came in.
That is not true. That is patently not true. Absolutely not true. The NPR Foundation sells through commercial media brokers. I know them. It's Media America in New York City. They sell based upon numbers and inventory. Not true. It's completely commercial.
I disagree. I mean, I'm not saying they don't do that when they have numbers, but most shows don't have numbers.
Oh, you don't think that they don't say, here's our podcast downloads? Oh, please. Oh, please. Oh, thee.
Well, I happen to have been in the public radio sector for a while.
I happen to have been in the radio selling side. The same people who sold my Pepsi's top 30 hit list were selling NPR.
Okay, I'm at the local level, too, which is different.
You're a local guy. I think big.
So what the point is that they got a scam going with the advertising, A. B, then they get government money for some unknown reason. And by the way, that only accounts for 1/5 of their budget. They said so in that
10%,
same show.
10%.
No, they said that's 20%. 1/5 of the budget be 20%.
The woman who got fired, Schiller, resigned, said it was 10%. But irrelevant, whatever.
10 to 20, whatever the case is, it's a spit in the bucket. They can just crank up the advertising. And then the scam that's the scam of scams is that we got advertising, we got government subsidies, and now we want your money.
Yeah.
So they got 3 sources of income, whereas a normal broadcast network has 1.
Yeah.
And we have 1.
Yeah, 1. Yeah. What you complaining about?
Where's our government money? We're doing a public service more than those guys are.
What? Say what?
Where's our government money?
You ain't getting no government money.